Hi everyone, this is Mr. Goldenberg, your student teacher here. And we're going to be talking about note-taking today. And we want each one of you to be able to look like that guy there in the picture, so happy and, I'm taking notes, yay! And so we want to give you the skills to be that happy, and so hopefully this presentation will help. Now you may ask me, why the heck do I need to know how to take good notes? Thought it was just the teacher comes in, talks for a while, we listen or we perhaps don't, and then we approach a bold-faced word or a bold word in the PowerPoint and we put it in a little blank. And then we're given the slides for free. Easy money, right? Well, it's not so simple as that. It's important to know how to take good notes. Because, well, you may not get the free PowerPoint or the free guided notes or the free fill in the blank. You might actually have to gather and organize the information yourself. And especially in the future when you're in college or the professional world, you'll have to do that. But also you might be reading a random book or a random non-fictional text of some sort or a news article, and you'll want to remember exactly what is written in it. And so you won't have a PowerPoint to guide you then, you won't have guided notes to guide you then, so you will need to be able to gather and organize information in that text. You will need to be able to take good notes. And then thirdly, you might have a situation where you are given the PowerPoint, you are given the guided notes, the fill-in-the-blank notes. And you can still do more in these situations than just sort of doze off and fill in the blanks. And doing more in these situations can improve your memory of that class, of that lesson, of that information. And so it's not as simple as just you sitting there filling in the blanks and all that. And so these next two slides, what they do is they contain 7 points that talk about what you need to do to take good notes. And throughout this lesson over PowerPoint today, we will discuss these 7 points. First is notice key concepts. Define key terms in second. Plan ahead. Review and reorganize our notes after class. Write in a shorthand. Mark any part of the notes where we need further clarification. And summarize our notes. And so after these two slides, what we're going to talk about is what makes a key term, what makes a key concept. And so, listen. So, what makes a good key concept or term? Well, it makes sense that anything a teacher emphasizes that is either on the SOL exam or on your personal exams. If we say, you need to know this for the test, chop chop, write it down, then obviously you need to write it down. If we emphasize in class with our own words, if we as teachers say, this is important, write it down. If we as teachers say, you need this concept to understand what we're talking about, write it down, then obviously write it down. After all, we as teachers know what we're talking about, and we don't want you to be this guy on an exam. We want you to just fly through it and know everything. Poor confused guy. What else makes a good key term or concept? Well, obviously if the book brings it to the forefront, tells you with a bold or highlighted word that the book thinks this word is important, then obviously you need to know it. Because the book is purposely bringing the word out to tell you, hey, this is critical, know this word. Any historical people, for example, Napoleon, or in World History 1, for example, Alexander the Great. You need to know those people because they're involved in so many different parts of history. And so by knowing the person, you know a little bit about their life, a little bit about what they did in all these events. It sort of helps you remember events by knowing the individual. It sort of helps you remember what's important about a concept by knowing the individual involved. Of course, you also need to know any major historical events. What would American history be without Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation? What would World War I be and World War II be without the Treaty of Versailles? These events are so critical. If you haven't found out already, you will find out, to what happens in the entire era, that not knowing them just makes you learn less, understand less. What makes a good key concept or term? I wrote here, anything that defines how we view a particular culture or movement. There are certain words that define places or events that are just so critical to what your first thought is of a situation, event, concept when you think about it after you've learned about it. So for example, when you look at Egypt, it's kind of hard not to think about the pyramids because they're just so critical and such a big part of how just even a normal person looks at Egypt. When you think of Egypt, you think of the pyramids. Anybody who's had a Sunday school education and a more Protestant worldview will understand what I mean when I say this, but when you think of the Reformation and Martin Luther, the thing that comes to mind is indulgences. It's this idea of paying your way into heaven that was so common during the Reformation. So these are key concepts that the first thing you think about when you think of the concept is the related word. The first thing you think about when you think of Egypt is the pyramids. And here we have a beautiful picture of the pyramids. Finally, please ask if you still are not sure. After a while of asking, you will get the hang of what we as teachers consider critical and what we as teachers consider not critical. And we are supposed to make sure you know that as well. Okay, why plan ahead? What's the use in reading the textbook early or taking a moment to actually organize your notes before you write them, before the lesson? Well, obviously, if you get a chance to read ahead, you'll get some idea of what the book says is important. Remember, we talked about bolded, highlighted words, and the book bringing those out, saying, listen to me, listen to the book, listen to what I'm highlighting. This is important. But also in the book, you'll have a review section after every chapter that tells you what exactly you should have learned from that chapter. Also in the book, you'll have bold-faced titles, bold titles that tell you what each section is about. And you can say, I'm going to make a question out of this bold-faced title. For example, if the bold-faced title is, if the bold-faced title is, why are Dunkin' Donuts good? Your question could be, why are Dunkin' Donuts good? Or what about Dunkin' Donuts makes them good? Or do I really care about Dunkin' Donuts? Why should I care? I personally, as a teacher, care about Dunkin' Donuts. So you'll see that example throughout. But also, planning ahead allows you to organize your note sheet before we start class. It's like moving. When you move, you typically get a box, very much like this one, and you put stuff in it. So that when you move to the new place, you'll know where certain things are because you've organized the boxes to carry kitchen stuff or computer stuff. And so you'll open up the boxes to get those things out in the new place. You can think of note taking like the same concept. In notes, you create little areas in your notes where you put things in. So you can create a little area for key terms. You can create a little area for key people. And you can do this ahead of time before class starts. And you can do this based off of your prior reading of the textbook. Who are key people? Who are key places? Make little sections, just like you're making little boxes when you move that fit particular things. So just like you put kitchenware in a particular box and computer stuff in a particular box, and note taking, you can write your notes ahead, organize your notes ahead by putting places for key terms, key concepts, key events, key people, questions you still have, that type of thing. You can create little spaces to put specific information. So then why do we need to review and reorganize our notes after class? Well, one thing, y'all's writing stinks sometimes. And if you can't read what you wrote in your own hand, then how are you going to remember it? How are you going to know what it is? How are you going to know, that you even listened during class? Reviewing and reorganizing your notes allows you to fix these things, to make things neater, to make things more organized, so that you just have a clue of what you actually wrote that day. Because you don't want your handwriting to look like this on your notes. It may end up being something that you don't understand the later you read it, because you won't be able to read your own handwriting. And then this is obvious, but we need to review and reorganize our notes to reorganize them. When you're taking notes in math, for example, you might have arrows pointing to certain places. You might have graphs or diagrams in certain locations. Well, if they're in the wrong spot, or if they're not close to the actual content so that you can understand what the graph is referring to, well, then you need to place them right next to the actual content. You also might write notes in a way that it's just you write a note every single line. You don't try to initially organize your notes, but you just write it in an outline format like you were taught in classes, English classes, to, write a paper or something like that. So reviewing and reorganizing your notes allows you to look at something like that's written more based on when the teacher says something than actually grouping things together, and it allows you to look at that and reorganize it so that you group terms, concepts, places, people together, so that you can understand relationships between things we talk about in class better. And so the actual act of reorganizing your notes is important, because it just lets you know better and clarify better in your head how things are related. Also, reviewing and reorganizing your notes allows you to identify areas in your notes where you missed something from the lecture. Maybe we talked too fast and you need clarification. When that happens and you identify it with maybe a question mark in your notes, feel free to bring it to us, because we're supposed to clarify these things. It's our job as teachers to take those question marks of things you need clarification for and offer more clarification. And finally, one of my favorite ones, you review and reorganize your notes to add memory aids. A memory aid is like a symbol, a visual, a set of words, just something that you could look at and say, aha, that tells me what it means. A very small, short unit of something that represents what the note is, that summarizes what the note is, that if you think about it, you can think of the term or concept. So, for example, if I write, I love Dunkin' Donuts, they are very tasty, I might draw a donut. Or if I write, I love roller coasters, I might draw a roller coaster. That picture of a roller coaster reminds me that I wrote I love roller coasters there. Or if I wanted to talk about, say, Martin Luther and the Reformation, I might draw some images to remind me of Martin Luther and the Reformation. For example, I may draw a book to remind me of the fact that writing was an important part of that. Reading and information was an important part of that era. Or, if I write, I had a hot dog in Paris, I might draw a picture of a hot dog and draw a picture of the Eiffel Tower, and to just be images in my mind that quickly send me to Paris in my head. Memory aids are just small units of things that help you remember. So that goes into this next point. What is shorthand and why do we need it? Shorthand's definition, if you looked it up on Google, is a method of rapid writing by means of abbreviations and symbols. So the stop sign is a symbol. If you didn't have the words STOP there, you would still know it's a stop sign, because we've, in our culture, seen that shape red on the inside as being a stop sign. We've come to associate it as a stop sign. It is a symbol for stop. So, how do we do it? What is an example? So if a teacher says, donuts are very good for your overall health, and they are very tasty. Basically, shorthand says, if we are writing this in shorthand, we want to abbreviate it with as little words as possible so that we can understand it. So a possible shorthand of a teacher saying, donuts are very tasty and good for your health, you might just write, donuts tasty and good for health, or donuts tasty and good health. Because those 5 words tells you the meaning of the sentence that the teacher said. So by knowing those 5 words, you know what the teacher says. That's what shorthand is. By abbreviating or condensing in shorter words to represent the larger thing that the teacher says. So how do I write shorthand? First, I must emphasize that it takes experience and practice. It does not come automatically, and there's no one set of advice that I can give you, because shorthand fundamentally is what makes it easier for you to remember exactly what the teacher says. So how you personally condense, make shorter, abbreviate, reduce what the teacher said into words or symbols so that you can remember it easier. And that takes experience and practice, because you need experience and practice of doing it consistently so that you have an idea of what teachers actually said, and so you have an idea of how you write, how you think. And so what's important at the very least is to think how would I remember what the teacher said using less words than the teacher? That is what shorthand is. So why is it important? It enables you to keep up with the pace of class. If any of us teachers are just talking too darn fast, you need to be able to keep up with that so that you don't miss too much. And so getting good with shorthand allows you to take notes quickly. It also ensures that you miss less from the lesson. Like I said, it allows you to keep up with the pace of the class. Shorthand also enhances your memory. And you might not know this or not understand why, but what shorthand is really doing is allowing you to think about things deeper, allowing you to understand things in a deeper way, and even allowing you to rephrase what the teacher says in a way you understand, to rewrite what a teacher says in a way you understand. And that process in of itself enhances your ability to remember something. Also, why do we need to mark when we need clarification? Like we said before, sometimes you have more questions than we can answer in class. Or you miss something and we need to clarify. So you want to be like this man here. You want to have these questions and you want to bring these questions to us. And we want to answer them for you. Also, so why do we need to summarize our notes? Well, I think summarization is a critically important part of note taking. Because you guys, well, you get hell thrown at you every day with 4 classes a day. That's a lot of information. You often have to go home and you're expected to remember, maybe biology, history, and English one day, or math, history, and science, some other aspect of science the other day. And so oftentimes your brain just shuts down and you're like, I don't care about this stuff. I don't want to remember it anymore. And so you need a tool for later on that day so that you can ask yourself, how much did I actually learn? How much did all the events today make me forget? So that you can actually know how productive you were every day. And so that's what summarization does. When you have to take it from your memory banks, take it from your long-term memory, and figure out how to put what's in your long-term memory into words, then you learn how much you actually learned. Summarization also enhances memory because you're dealing with material again. You are trying to remember after a period of absence from it material again. You are working with it. And anytime you work with stuff you have to learn, you remember it better. Why else do we need to summarize our notes? Well, it helps you quickly understand your notes on first glance. So, for example, if I'm reading an article, or if I'm reading a newspaper thing, or if I'm even reading something on MSN.com, what I might sometimes do is take each paragraph, and after reading it, ask myself, how can I summarize this in my own words? And then I'll write a sentence or two that basically says the meaning of the paragraph, what actually happened in the paragraph. So when I go back and look over those notes, I'm like, aha, I don't have to read the notes anymore. I can just read how I summarized it. Because how I summarized it will cue me into what the actual meaning was, what actually happened. You can do the same with your notes in class. So, say we present notes for 5 minutes in class, and then we do an activity. You can have a break there in your notes, and then summarize it in your own words, and then do the activity, so that when you come back, you have that quick summarization of what just happened. And that means you don't have to read every fine detail you write, you read just the summary. Also, summarizing your notes helps you put your notes in your own words. Oftentimes, Mr. Sargent, myself, or any other teacher in the classroom, we don't say things as best as we ought to, or as best as it's suitable for you, but you may understand it when leaving class. Summarization helps you put those words that we said into your own words, helps you reorganize it. Like this guy here. So now the final part of the PowerPoint. How important is it? And I mean, what do you need to do if we give you the PowerPoint for free, or if we give you fill in the blank notes? As I said earlier, this is easy money, you might think. I don't have to do nothing, but do you? Yes, you still have valuable things you can do, even when we give you this stuff. So, what do? Well, if we give you the PowerPoint, you might want to add memory aids like we talked about before. Pictures, small symbols, small amount of words, some recording. Maybe that just helps you remember what we talked about. You also might want to mark where you need clarification. Sometimes we might not be clear in the PowerPoint. Sometimes you might want to know more. Sometimes you still might be confused, even if we talk as good as we can. So, you need to mark these spots. You need to summarize. Remember how I said summarization can help you not look at your notes, but look at your summary. But summarization can also just tell you how much did you actually learn. It can also enable you to enhance your memory by having you actively work with the material and actively trying to remember it again. So if you write a little summary after a long note-taking process, you'll remember it better. Sometimes also guided notes, which is what those fill-in-the-blank notes are called, or PowerPoints don't contain enough information to help you understand what we're talking about in class. So you may need to add more things to your notes, like key people, key terms, key concepts, ideas that help you understand the PowerPoint. Also, you might want to reorganize what the PowerPoint says in your own words. That is not reorganization. Can you really understand this? I can't. So, in conclusion, I sincerely hope, and we sincerely hope, that this PowerPoint gives you some more ideas as to how you can take notes and what you can do with notes better, so that you can understand and remember things better. This is not a PowerPoint that is the all-inclusive guide to taking notes. There are techniques that litter the internet for how to remember taking notes. There are ideas that litter the internet that you can research on your own, especially if you struggle with this. But what we are asking you to do at the very least is to do this concluding activity, which is please complete the Google document. Just let us know certain things about this presentation.